Welcome back. Today we will discuss about Electricity Act 2003. We have seen in the last video lecture that Electricity Act 2003 was one of the important milestones in electricity sector in our country. The Electricity Act 2023, we will see different dimensions of or different areas where we have seen improvements after the enactment of Electricity Act 2003, and we will also discuss about the difficulties which we are facing in implementation of Electricity Act 2003. I hope that by the end of this lecture you will be able to assess the impact of Electricity Act 2003. So firstly, coming to the introduction, as already mentioned, we had this Indian Electricity Act 1910 and also Electricity Act Supply Act 1948 to govern the Indian power sector. But unfortunately, we had this after 1948. We had these SEBs. The performance of these SEBs, it was dwindling because of the subsidies, because of the financial performances. It was very poor. Even in 1991, we tried with economic reforms. We invited private participation. We invited foreign investments. Despite everything, every task we tried, we ultimately haven't improved the electricity performance, electricity sector performance. So, in order to bring a single legislation to address all the key areas of the electricity sector of this particular nation, we have developed this Electricity Act 2003. The major purpose of Electricity Act 2003 was to consolidate the laws which related to different areas of power system in our country. We had so many laws till then. Every time we had separate laws for the generation, distribution, transmission, trading, and also utilization of electricity. So we wanted to bring all the laws into a single particular law, and that was possible only with Electricity Act 2003. So in that Electricity Act 2003 itself, we have tried to implement so many measures, we have proposed so many measures for development of Indian electricity sector, and also to encourage private players so that there is a healthy competition among different market players. And more importance was given to protecting the interests of the consumers. And also the tariff structure, because there were so many private players entering the markets. Foreign investment was also happening. So they needed a strong word on the tariffs. So for rationalizing the electricity tariffs also, we needed a law. And that was possible with Electricity Act 2003. And electricity regulatory commissions and appellate regulatory commissions were earlier, except they were implemented somewhere around 1998, I think. And one more thing was to ensure electricity supply to every household in our country. So to address all these issues, we have developed a single act or single law. We call it as Electricity Act 2003. It took nearly 2 years, I think, to frame this entire book. So it came into effect on 10th June 2003. It consists of nearly 18 parts, 185 sections and one schedule, and all states which do come under the jurisdiction of Indian Parliament, they must follow this Electricity Act 2003 till the bifurcation of this Jammu Kashmir in 2019 also. Jammu Kashmir was exempted because they had their own rules. So in 2019, when Jammu Kashmir again was partitioned into two union territories, it also came under Electricity Act 2003. Now we will see the different important things, which were, first of all, we will start with the newly introduced things in Electricity Act 2003. We started with NEP, started in 2003. And the National Tariff Policy, NTP, I think it came into picture in 2006, I think. So these were completely newly introduced. The policy which defined the electricity sector right now, which we are enjoying right now. These were defined in 2003 and 2006. And there was a separate entity for electricity trading that was newly introduced. Right now we enjoy this concept of IEX, Indian Electricity Exchange, and there was a concept called as open access. Earlier you had limitations on this open access. So open access transmission, open access distribution, both are happening now. Transmission, it is available. That we will discuss again when we discuss about PGCIL and POSOCO. Open access transmission is possible now in our country. Distribution is a little bit doubted issue, always arguable issue. And multi-year tariffs. This was one of the important things because there were so many private players who were entering into the market. And most of the private players were into the generation sector. So, again, these people who are generating the electricity, they need to sell to someone, right? So, unless if I don't know what is the cost of electricity for the next 5 years or 10 years, why will I join the electricity sector? Because I should know that this will be the tariff for the next 5 years or 10 years. So, there must be a very strict paper that mentions that this will be the tariff for the next 5 years or 10 years or 15 years or some long term visionary. So, that is possible with multi-year tariffs, which we call it as MYT, and that was introduced in the electricity sector in 2003 Act. And also, there was a body which was formed, Appellate Tribunal, to resolve the issues among the different statutory bodies. In the earlier, also we have seen that there are so many statutory bodies in our country to govern this electricity sector. So, any issue related to this electricity sector should be solved by one particular body, and we have developed this Appellate Tribunal. Okay. So, these were the newly introduced things in Electricity Act 2003. And coming to, we will discuss about the salient features only. So, regarding the salient features, I will discuss about somewhere around 11 to 14 points. I will concentrate on these things. And in the examination also, I will be asking some 2 to 3 of all this. 12 to 13, I will be asking 2 to 3 in the examination to discuss in detail. So, the points which I will be discussing and in this video lecture and the next video lecture, the first thing we will concentrate on the role of governments, and next we will see about the status of ruralization, and next we will see generation sector and transmission and distribution and the laws which are pertaining to consumer protection and electricity trading, the status of electricity trading in our country, and the setup of Appellate Tribunal, Regulatory Commission working, tariffs, Central Electricity Authority, measures against theft of electricity, restructuring of state electricity boards. All these things we will be discussing now in detail. So, except the role of governments, these 11 items we will discuss in detail. Okay, what is the status of these things as of now in 2022? Right now, this act was introduced in 2003. Right now, we are in 2022. Somewhere nearly 20 years have happened. So, what is the status of these laws? That we will discuss now. And as an electrical engineer, you must be able to suggest if anything is not implemented properly. It must be your role to suggest what went wrong and what should be done to make it right. That I will be asking in examination. Okay. So, first of all, we'll start with the role of governments. Electricity Act 2003, it clearly defined what the role of government must be. So, the role of government must be, first thing is to develop NEP, the next thing is to develop NTP. So, the government has set up a committee comprising of senior engineers, the people who are related to electricity sector, and finally, these were NEP and NTP were introduced in 2003 and 2006. And there was a national policy for rural areas. It was implemented particularly for setting up of renewable energy and non-renewable energy, particularly in rural areas. So, actually, rural areas, they come under this electricity concept, basically comes under state governments. So, central government, in coordination with the state governments, it developed this national policy for rural areas so that it can permit standalone systems. What we call them as isolated grids, right? So that are to be developed based upon either renewable energy or any non-conventional energy resources. right? And next is, this is regarding generation. Regarding the generation, there was a national policy, and regarding the purchase of electricity, the government also, it gave permission for the people to generate electricity, right? So local grids have come into picture, captive power plants have come into picture. So the government has developed, the EA 2003 has forced the government to develop a plan to purchase power from the captive power plants, and in particular from cooperative sector. So they might be just like franchises or private licensees, or just like local government bodies, local panchayats. So what does it mean? So let us suppose there is a small village or a small community, gated community, and they have developed their own power. They are generating their own power, and if they do have excess power, so they can sell their power to any discount, right? So for that there must be a proper law. So that national policy, it was to be developed by the government, and fortunately all these three have been implemented. They have been developed and they are successfully implemented. This is the status. These have been successfully implemented in our country. And next is rural electrification. Electricity Act 2003, it focused on electrifying all the households in our country. And the government in 2020-21, I think, it officially stated that 100% of our country was electrified, which means that each and every household in our country is now experiencing electricity, is now enjoying the fruits of electricity. So it proposed that the government has to develop plans to extend a supply of electricity to all villages. Now this is 100% satisfied as of now. And it also ensured that the government must make it mandatory that there is no requirement of license for any person who will generate power in rural areas. So anybody can freely generate power and distribute power in the rural areas. Now the rule is there, but still the implementation is the biggest question. Now you see, you as an engineer, you can think of who will come and generate power in the rural areas and distribute power in the rural areas, right? Because the state governments itself, they are generating power and they are distributing power in the local areas. Who will buy power from you when the state governments are already providing them free power at a very lower cost? So rule is there, but the successful implementation of this particular thing is become a big question right now. Now, what you can suggest to effectively improve this generation in the rural areas? The only thing what you can do is nothing but you can provide subsidy to the people who want to generate in the rural areas. That's all what you can suggest. Okay. The next comes the generation sector. There were so many SOPs which were given to the generation sector in the Electricity Act 2003. One such thing was, there is no need of applying for any license for the generation sector. So free from licensing. And also the Electricity Act 2003, it made it mandatory to apply for economic clearance for non-hydro generation. There must be a clearance, because anybody comes and set up plants means they must get a clearance from the government, right? So every non-hydro generation must get a clearance from TEC. A TEC clearance is required. Technical and economic clearance must be required. And also for hydro generation, apart from this one, there must be clearance from the Central Electricity Authority also, because the Central Electricity Authority, they will check out the dam safety, and also because hydel power, basically the power is generated from the water, and water is not limited to one particular state. Generally, if you take Brahmaputra river or Ganges river, even we do have Godavari and Krishna river also, there are always disputes happening among the states about who to utilize the water. So if some higher state who are on the higher level, if they start developing dams and they start building dams, and they will stop the flow of water, then the remaining states, they won't get any power. So that's why hydel power generation clearance must be got from CEA. Even Telangana government also, They have got so many check dams built, right? They are getting permission from the central electricity authority. It is mandatory for anyone. And next is, if anybody wants to generate captively, or if anybody wants to develop a captive power plant, let us suppose our college itself is having a captive power plant of 600 kilowatts. So it is free of control. So our college itself can control the power. We can control our own generation. Nobody comes here and gives us any instructions to generate the power. So we are free from any control, and open access must be provided. That is a rule which has been developed, and it is being implemented also. Even we also now we are getting an open access transmission. The fact is that we don't sell it to any other people. We are just providing it to the DISCOM itself. So open access is to be provided, subjected to the availability of transmission facility. And next is, generation from renewable energy is to be promoted. That we are achieving the targets, 175 gigawatts of renewable energy. That target also we have achieved. Now our target by 2030 is that we must go with 30% of entire energy must be from renewable sources. That also we hope that we will be matching. Okay. And the generation, there was one more thing. ERC must maintain a minimum power level which is to be generated from the renewable energy. That also we achieved. So mostly all of these things have been achieved, which have been proposed by the Electricity Act 2003. And next, the transmission. In the transmission sector, the Electricity Act 2003, it mandated developing of CTU and STU, Central Transmission Utility and State Transmission Utility. Both were completely set up. Every state now has State Transmission Utility and Central Transmission Utility. Where they are, CTU is now, it is a part of PGCIL itself. STUs, it is a big question. Where they are, how they are working, these are all part of, even in our state also, where it is a part of Transco itself. TS Transco itself, it is taking a care of Transco, STU, SP, SDLC, everything is being taken care of by these Transco itself. So load dispatch is to be in the hands of the government company or organization, because load dispatch it is very important one in operation of power systems. So load dispatch, separate LDCs have been set up, NLDC, RLDC and SLDCs, these have been set up. Yes, it is 100% now in the hands of the government itself. And transmission companies to be licensed by appropriate commission after considering CTU and STU. This is a big question, because transmission is now still not that much private companies are interested in transmission. And load dispatch center, transmission utility, transmission licenses should not trade in power. Yes, it is happening. 100% implementation is there. And open access transmission lines is to be provided to distribution licenses generating companies. Yeah, it is also happening, but no large number of players in the distribution sector. No large number of private players in the distribution sector. That is the biggest one. Okay. So with this, I will stop this one. We will discuss a few more areas in our next lecture.